Hello everyone, friends. Have you ever wondered where the energy comes from, without which our life and civilization are impossible? While our bodies burn calories, civilization consumes coal and gasoline, and complex chemical processes rage in the depths of nuclear reactors. The energy doesn't come out of nowhere, we have to produce it. And in this sense, a single person and a powerful corporation play by the same rules. How does mankind produce energy? For thousands of years, the answer has been simple: burn whatever burns. The image of a wild cave dweller tossing wood into a fire may seem primitive to us, but a look at today's energy industry makes us uncomfortable. After all, 90% of all energy on the planet is still produced with the help of steam turbines, invented back in 1884. The method of operation has not changed much. They heat water by burning coal, oil, gas, or oil shale. Can't we come up with something more modern in the 21st century than just burning fuel like our distant ancestors? Scientists have been trying to find an answer to this question for a long time. At the end of the 19th century, the first hydroelectric power plants appeared, followed by wind power plants. In 1954, almost simultaneously, the first nuclear power plant was launched in the USSR, and the first functioning solar panels were created in the USA. It seemed that this would mark the beginning of a new energy era. However, a large-scale transition to alternative energy sources never happened. What is the reason? Energy sources are usually divided into renewable and non-renewable. However, neither of them is endless. The only question is how quickly they will run out. The reserves of non-renewable resources, such as coal, oil, and gas, are estimated to last for several centuries, while water and wind energy will be available for hundreds of millions of years, and solar energy will last for billions of years. Theoretically, nuclear energy could be used even after the last stars in the universe have gone out. It would be logical to rely on renewable sources, but their widespread adoption is constrained by a number of factors. The main one is the economic availability of fossil fuels. In some regions, coal is still mined by hand and transported to power plants where it is used to generate energy. Compared to the expensive fuel for nuclear power plants, it remains much more affordable. Despite the long lifetime of renewable sources, their use requires a significant investment. The construction of hydroelectric power plants, wind turbines, and solar panels is expensive. In contrast, fossil fuels are already extracted and ready for use. Electric cars are often considered an environmentally friendly alternative to traditional vehicles. Switching from gasoline engines to electric vehicles does reduce air pollution in cities. However, the low cost of electricity is caused by the fact that much of it is generated by burning coal. As a result, emissions are moving outside cities, but not completely disappearing. They continue to enter the atmosphere, but in this case, near power plants. Besides, the transition to electric vehicles alone does not guarantee total environmental safety. The production of electronics requires the use of rare resources such as coltan, a valuable ore mostly mined in Africa. Mine conditions are often far from modern safety standards. Moreover, the battle for control over deposits of the metal was one of the factors that led to the Second Congo War. The conflict, which lasted from 1998 to 2003, affected 9 nations and killed 5 million people, making it one of the most destructive wars of the late 20th century. Nevertheless, information about these consequences is rarely widely discussed. Another important aspect is the lithium needed for battery production. The lithium-ion batteries used in electric vehicles lose capacity over time and need to be replaced. However, recycling them remains a challenge. Only 10% of such batteries are recycled in the United States today, while the remaining 90% are either sent to landfills or stored awaiting more efficient recycling technologies. In addition, lithium poses potential environmental and human health risks. Its compounds can have toxic effects, and when accumulated in the body can cause serious nervous system disorders. Thus, the development of electric transportation, despite its obvious advantages, involves a number of complex environmental and ethical problems that require a comprehensive solution. Let's assume that all problems are solved. There is peace in Africa, and electric cars are powered solely by renewable energy. and made entirely of biodegradable materials. However, even in this idealized scenario, there is still one intractable problem: infrastructure. Green energy has one important feature: its generation is unstable. Solar panels do not work on cloudy days or at night. Wind turbines become useless without wind, and hydro turbines depend on the level of water flows. This dependence on natural cycles means that we need to build large-scale systems for energy storage. Modern batteries, despite all their advances, remain too expensive and resource-intensive to be the backbone of a global energy grid. For example, the largest energy storage facility is at a solar power plant called Ouarzazate in Morocco. The total area is 30 square kilometers, which is half of Manhattan in New York. The power plant is capable of storing 3 gigawatt-hours of energy. But the daily consumption of New York City far exceeds this figure. The entire state would have to be covered with batteries in order for New York to survive a week without sun and wind. In California, where the sun shines much more often, there is another problem: excess energy. When solar panels began to proliferate, the strain on the grid was not yet critical. But as the number of panels has grown, the situation has changed. During peak hours, solar panel owners pay for their energy to be fed into the grid. But there is no technical possibility to store the excess energy. Instead of just storing it, there is a serious dilemma: where to spend it. The bottom line is that by noon, electricity prices in California could be negative, and that's not the limit. The situation is similar with wind turbines, but there is another problem. Unlike the sun, which rises every day, the wind is not as predictable. In northern countries such as Sweden, wind generators sometimes freeze in winter, and in order to start them, helicopters pour hot water on the blades. But the depreciation of blades is a separate problem. They need to be replaced, and the old ones have to be either recycled or disposed of. And of course, we should not forget that every wind generator is not only a source of energy, but also an invisible threat to birds. According to statistics, one wind turbine generating 1 gigawatt of energy kills an average of 3 birds annually. Despite the existing difficulties, green energy continues to develop rapidly. One of the key reasons for this is significant government support. In 2024, the European Investment Bank increased its financing of environmental projects to 50.7 billion euros, which accounted for 57% of its total financing for the year. There is also strong support in the USA, with California state authorities reimbursing up to $7,500 when you purchase an electric car. Over its history, Tesla has received about $38 billion in government grants, soft loans, and deductions, which has probably contributed to its financial strength. There are such enormous sums of money allocated to green energy that in many cases, wind turbines built with subsidies remain unconnected to the grid because they have already achieved their main objective. Nevertheless, the future of renewable energy looks promising. For example, nuclear power is considered one of the cleanest sources of energy. In fast neutron reactors, radioactive fuel can be reprocessed many times, allowing the same substance to be used for tens and theoretically thousands of years. Curiously, 5 of the 7 operating fast neutron reactors are located in Russia. After Chernobyl and Fukushima, nuclear power plants can hardly be called environmentally friendly. However, it sounds brutal, but in the event of an accident, radioactive substances stop emitting over time. In contrast, coal burned in power plants turns into carbon dioxide, which endlessly accumulates in the atmosphere, and nature is unable to remove it. The so-called capacity utilization factor is at the core of the debate in the energy sector, which essentially means the efficiency of a plant, its efficiency factor. And this is where nuclear energy wins. It is twice as efficient as burning coal, 3 times as efficient as wind power, and 5 times as efficient as solar power. But there is a problem. Nuclear power plants require huge investments both in money and time. Construction of modern reactors can take up to 10 years and cost tens of billions of dollars. A thermal power plant of similar capacity will cost 3 to 4 times less and will be built 3 times faster. The problem of radioactive waste has not been neglected either. Even with repeated reprocessing of fuel, Its final decay products must be safely stored for thousands of years, which requires special geological storage facilities. This issue often causes discontent among local residents. Green organizations, using the fear of accidents and radiation to their advantage, often lead to paradoxical consequences. For example, after the Fukushima tragedy, Germany refused nuclear power, but soon found itself dependent on foreign gas, restarted coal plants, and expanded coal mining. In the U.S., renewable energy sources represent 20% of nuclear power, 20% of all electricity generation. Thermal power stations in the United States are mainly coal and gas-fired. However, the geography and climate of the country create certain limitations for the development of wind and solar energy in some regions. For example, in the northern states where it is too cold in winter, and in desert areas where it is too hot and arid. On the other hand, the United States has unique natural conditions, such as San Francisco Bay, where significant power for hydroelectric plants can be obtained due to strong tides. The capacity of such a plant could be several times the capacity of all other power plants in the country if it were built. However, as with other forms of green energy, there is the problem of transportation of the extracted energy. Remote areas such as California do not have sufficiently developed infrastructure to transport the energy over long distances. Green energy, despite all its ambitions, faces not a lack of willingness to care about the environment, but serious technical and infrastructural problems. However, it's not hopeless. For example, the cost of lithium-ion batteries has fallen by almost 80% in the last 20 years, opening the way for new solutions. Energy storage projects like Australia's Hornsdale Power Reserve and Morocco's Ouarzazate have proven that the biggest storage cities can help stabilize power grids, though not as large as the world's metropolises. But the most exciting developments are yet to come. Green hydrogen, produced using excess solar and wind energy, is already gaining popularity as an alternative fuel. For example, hydrogen-powered ships are already being developed in Norway. The future is already in sight. However, the triumph of green energy is still a long way off. Even in California, where renewable energy is considered a national project, solar and wind provide only 34% of electricity needs. Even if humanity does switch to renewable energy, it will probably happen in the very distant future. Who knows? Maybe we'll witness revolutionary discoveries, like the creation of a commercial fusion reactor that will make electricity almost free. Or just one tidal power plant will supply energy to the entire planet. Or maybe one day all deserts will be transformed into giant solar power plants, powering the world for centuries. Thank you for watching to the end. Your opinion is really important to us, so feel free to leave comments. We will be happy to read and discuss them. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. We're preparing a lot of interesting and relevant content, so stay tuned.